Hello and welcome to my channel. If you're new here, do introduce yourself in the comments and tell me whereabouts in the world you are. Now I've got to let you into a little secret. My husband bought me a present for Christmas and 6 months later I've never used it. It's hiding away in the back of one of my cupboards. I'm trying to decide whether I give it a new lease of life with a bit of a paint job. Do you want to know what it is? It's one of these vintage cake stands, a cup, saucer and plate combination, and somebody's drilled holes in it and added in these little metal uprights. To be honest, it was on my wish list, but that was about 15 years ago. I have noticed though on Pinterest that there is a fashion now for tiered trays, and I thought if I painted this over, got rid of those old-fashioned flowers, I could repurpose this as a tiered tray and bring new life into it. I'm Julie from Julie Davis Flower Workshops and Flower Start, the online flower arranging classes. So you see me here taking apart the tiered tray. Everything screws together. There's a little loop handle at the top and a series of washers to protect the fine bone china. And the print on this are forget-me-nots. It's bone china made in England. Now my crockery is separated, I'll put that to one side, and I've got these 3 joining sections which are metal, which I'm going to spray paint. And I need to make sure I keep safe the bottom nut and the washers, so I'm putting those to one side for later. I'm going to do my spray painting in my workshop. I found that when I was painting for my last video I was getting the spray everywhere and it was dribbling, so it's much easier to do it when you're not standing out in a breeze. So you see me here putting out a dust sheet, and I've got cardboard boxes that I'm putting underneath the sheet just to raise it up a little. It makes it easier when you want to get really close to what you're spraying, especially when you don't want to actually turn the plates over. So I'm going to use a surface primer and then the painter's touch, which is the top coat. And here I am spraying with a light touch. This is my primer, and when that's dry I add the top coat on top, and then I'm spraying also my fixings in grey spray paint because that's all that I had to hand. My crockery is all dried now and I'm really pleased with the finish. I used 1 coat of primer and I think just 2 light coats of the top coat. What I'm going to do next is add a black line around the edge to give the appearance of enamel wear. I've got some acrylic paint here and I'll start off with squirting a small amount into my saucer. I like to use a sponge for this. This is actually a sponge roller from one of the mini rollers that you use for painting the awkward places behind your radiator. Dab in your sponge, take off any excess and get painting. I really like this technique and it's so satisfying seeing it come together so quickly. I've speeded up this next section so you can see what I'm doing here as I go around the edge of my saucer. Great. And then I'm moving on to my plate. So exactly the same technique, just make sure you don't overload your sponge because you don't want any splodges. There's the plate all done. Now the saucer, I think I might go around the top rim, but also the base as well. And perhaps even the handle, I'm not quite sure yet. I was all fingers and thumbs doing the base of the cup, and as you're about to see, I make a little bit of a mistake. I just accidentally painted on here. Perhaps I can get away and pretend that's a chip in my enamel. And then onto the top rim of my teacup, and that's me finished. I don't think I'm going to paint that handle after all. What do you think about that dab of paint? Shall I leave it as is and pretend it is a chip, or paint over it? Let me know in the comments. So what would you have done? Kept the chip or painted over it? In the end, I decided to keep the chip and just accept it's there and pretend it's all part of the aged crockery. And when my paint is all dry, I then start to put the tiered tray back together again, sandwiching each piece of the crockery with the plastic washers so nothing gets cracked, and give it all firm twist right at the end. And here is the finished thing. So you have to let me know what you think. Would you prefer to have kept it with the vintage forget-me-nots, or do you like the black and white makeover? So here's my finished, reinvented farmhouse style tiered tray. I think I'm going to get loads of use of that, much more than I ever did when it was a cake stand. And now the fun part begins. I'm going to start decorating it so I can really enjoy it as a piece of decor in my home. There's only one thing I'm not quite sure about, and that's the grey spray paint on my uprights. I didn't have any black spray paint, and I'm just wondering if I should have painted them black with my acrylic paint. What do you think? Leave me a comment and let me know what you would have done. As you can see, my tiered tray is quite petite, so I need to make sure that when I add in my decorative items, they're not too big. The first thing I'm going to add are some boho beads, so I can drape them from the top layer through the middle and the bottom, and that will give a visual link between each of the 3 layers. I made these beads out of salt dough a while back, and if you're interested in learning how, check out my playbook on DIY containers. I'll leave a link to the download in my shop in the video show notes below. I'm starting at the top, spiralling it round, and then letting the tassel at the end trail off to the side. I'm going to add vases in next for some fresh flowers. These are absolutely tiny. I'm going to set the largest one down low and put the smaller one on the upper tier. I'm going to have a flower arranging theme to my display, so along with my tiny vases, I've got some miniature plant pots too. Again, I take the largest of the pots and put that on the bottom tray. I'm going to roll it over on its side, and the smaller ones can go higher up. Just for fun, I'm going to add in some antique scissors as well. Make it look as if I've just picked flowers from the garden. It's up to you how much you put on your tiered tray. Keep it minimal or add more. I'm going to add some fresh flowers. I'll need to put some water into my pots. I'm going to start off with some lavender, which I picked from my sister's garden a couple of weeks ago, and it's dried already. I've got poppy seeds heads as well. These are from field poppies that we saw a few weeks ago, and these are from my front drive. I've also been drying rose petals as and when I get roses given to me. These look great in the top. And actually, as I see those fall, I might scatter some round the edges as well. So there's a link between what I've got in the top, the middle and the bottom layers. And some dried hydrangeas too. I might add a bunch of those into the top layer and just add a few florets as I go down. And again, that gives a visual link between what I've got at the top, the middle and the bottom. Time for some fresh flowers, and these are hydrangeas which are growing at the moment. Cut them down and add them into that miniature vase. I've got some beautiful clematis growing outside my back door. That'll That'll look great in here too. And finally, some tiny purple wallflowers. I'm really pleased with my finished display. It just says July to me, with fresh things picked out of the garden and some few bits and pieces that I've managed to save and dry. And of course I can change this up every week or so and change it through the seasons. I hope you enjoy this project, and I'll see you again next time.